you want to get creative sounds, you got to go to the cymbals. Endless variations and combinations. But with a little ingenuity, you can come up with your own sounds. I tend to accumulate cymbals. I have 14-inch cymbals from years ago that I've replaced with 13-inch hi-hats, 11-inch hi-hats, 12-inch hi-hats, 10-inch hi-hats. I'm playing 11s again right now. Here, let me show you something. This is a 14-inch bottom cymbal from a set. Got a little creative with it. And what I did was I drilled holes around the edge, went over to the hardware store and picked up some nuts and bolts and washers and rivets and, you know, things that like rattle on it so I could create a new sound. There you go. Pretty nasty. But in context, this can sound very, very good. Next I went to what I call an 8-inch pair of hi-hats. They're really not hi-hats. They're just two cymbals, two different cymbals. This is an EFX 8-inch. I think this is out of production now, but here's the sound. Okay, and then 6-inch Zill bell. Woo, good game show sound, huh? Put them on your X hat, like so. And now you got this sound. The cool thing about using an X hat is that if you put pressure on them or close them up, you can get a dry sound, tight sound, or a shimmery sound. What really matters is that if it sounds good to you, then it sounds good. So go mix your metals, okay? So what's the hoopla all about? It's the laws of the hoop. You know, these things that hold the head down to the snare drum? Well, actually, hoops can change the sound and the feel of your snare drum, and I want to demonstrate that to you. But let's learn something about, well, two of the commonly used hoops. This is called a flange hoop, and the reason it's called a flange hoop is it has a design, right, this channel is flanged. It adds rigidity to it, and also, flange hoops are made out of steel, so they actually have a musical quality to it. Check it out. A little bit like a, you know, barnyard triangle, right? Okay. Now its counterpart, the die-cast hoop, is a completely different manufacturing process. It's made out of a softer metal. It's generally a zinc alloy of some type. It doesn't vibrate as nicely as the steel, and that's how it affects the head. Check this out. Kalunk! Whoa. Okay. But that's not a bad thing, because that's what differentiates the two hoops from each other. Okay, I set up an experiment for you, and you can do the listening test now. These are two identical drums, except for this brilliant finish. Same shells, heads, tuned the same. This has die cast, this one has flange hoops on it. Here's the die cast sound. Here's the flanged. Now, I don't know if you hear the difference, but from here, they're totally different, and they feel totally different. The die cast, you know, because the hoop is not as vibrant, actually has a dampening effect around the edge of the head, dampening some of the overtones, sort of like putting one of those rings around the edge of the head on the outside, but more subtle than that. On the other hand, the flanged excites the edge of the head so that more overtones are, it even makes the snares react differently. So it really changes the characteristic of the drum. Also, the feel is different. The center of this is hard and very definite, and the center on this one is spongy and has give to it. So you can see that clearly that you can change the sound of your drum just by changing hoops. Now let me show you this. What I do is I get my favorite drum. It has a certain bolting pattern, and for instance, this is aluminum DW, and I ordered this with flanged hoops on it. Now, for a difference, I ordered a wood drum, and I ordered die cast on it. Now, you know where I'm going with this, right? What this does for me is instead of two possibilities, two different snare drums, it really gives me four completely different sounds and feels by interchanging die cast and flange hoops off the different drums. Now, you may not have you know, two drums of the same bolting pattern, but you can go out and you get yourself a die-cast hoop and just put it on the top of one of your drums, your favorite drums, and you can change the sound that way. And that's what the hoop law is all about. It's the laws of the hoop. My philosophy is BICB, best it can be, and small details make big differences. It's an accumulative effect where when you experience something that is better than it was, you can't turn back after that. You just keep incrementing upwards towards excellence. And I use this philosophy in everything I do, and especially my design work. So, big bass drum, small details. We talked about the front head in the last QT, so let's go to the batter head. And I want to talk about the effects of shell pressure and hoop distortion and how it can change the sound of the drum. Shell pressure is really easy. If you have a drum set where you have toms mounted on the bass drum, you got to off those puppies right away. Go out and buy yourself a couple of pieces of hardware, small pieces of hardware like this here. You mount them on your cymbal stands on each side of the kit, and this will improve the physical setup of the kit. It'll make your tom sound better. It'll make your bass drum sound better. It'll make you sound better, and you'll feel better about that. All right, hoop distortion. Now, I set up this little test for you. When I put the hoop into this bass drum pedal, tighten it into the hold down, its natural position is 90 degrees relative to the floor. That means that you want to set your bass drum, if you can imagine, parallel to the floor. For some reason, many drummers like to, well, they like to tilt their drums back, maybe because it looks good or whatever reason. It fights the laws of physics. Now check this out. When I tighten this into the holder, it goes, whoa, back to that natural position. Now, what goes on here is that you have the mass of the bass drum fighting the tension of the hold down, and the weak point is the hoop. And the hoop distorts, knocks the head out of tune, which is most important, and also raises the pitch of the bass drum. Not a good thing for like more low end. So, let me now show you how shell pressure affects the pitch of the drum. Okay, imagine having tom-toms sitting on top of this drum, adding 10, 12 pounds of weight to the shell. I'm going to show you how you can measure the effects of that. Check this out. Put your hand on the top of the shell, don't apply pressure, and then apply pressure. Here we go. 4 hits. Big difference in sound. Now you might not be able to hear that unless you use headphones or put on quality speakers. So if you're listening to it on your computer, then you're going to have to trust me on this. There's a big difference in sound. Now, the hold down method. Leave the hold down off. You can see that this drum is set up parallel to the floor. Okay? Hit it. Do the same test with it off and then on. Here we go. Very, very little difference in the sound. Maybe a little bit, a little higher in pitch, but you can adjust the drum to compensate for that. So now I'm going to tilt the drum back, but I'm not going to do it on screen to save some time. Be right back. All right, I've angled the bass drum, as you can see. So let's do that test again, see what effect this has on it. Ready? Here we go. Wow. If we compare the first bass drum hit to this one, just the weight of the drum shifted to the back has changed the pitch. It's already higher than before. Wow. Here we go. Off. On. Definitely changes pitch. Again, if you're not listening with headphones, you gotta trust me on this. It definitely goes up in pitch. So, big drum, little details. That's how to tweak out your bass drum.